Hello, this is a demo of the myfamilystoryai.com website. This is a website that allows you to view your ancestry data that you have collected using other sources like Family Tree Maker or Ancestry.com. Allows you to share it as a file. You can share that on through a thumb drive, or you can place it into a Facebook group, allowing you or whoever you want to share that information with to view the file itself. Using this data, we can also generate an AI prompt. The AI prompt allows you to use a ChatGPT or other sources to be able to uh, generate a biography. It will also generate books and charts and collages from your data and from your images. So let's go ahead and load a file here real quick. I can load it by pressing this button. If you want to see what it looks like, here's a sample of presidents. I can go up here and load a GEDCOM. In here, there are instructions on how to create a file, a zip file that contains both your GEDCOM file and your images information. So I'm going to go ahead and load a file. This is a file with roughly 35,000 names. It's a fairly large file. I've got smaller files that have some 2,000 names, which load in a matter of seconds. This will take slightly under a minute. Now what it's doing is it's caching the files locally, so next time you go to the website, it will simply pull up the information and you won't have to select the file again or even load it again. It'll parse the GEDCOM information. It will then take those images that it's cached and it will associate those images with the individuals within your genealogy data. Now, once it's done, it's going to come up to root individual here. You'll notice here's the names. This is 35,000 names. There's lots of information here. I can go over here and choose an individual by simply typing a name. I can go and type Lawrence. I can pull up Lawrence. Lawrence has got an interesting ancestor over here in Adolfo, and he's interesting because he has a dotted lines. He's got adopted parents as well as parents. So you can show that you can see the amount of detail that we have in here. I'm going to navigate back to my person here. I actually want to start all of this with Alita. I can hide this list, by the way, and on a phone or other devices that comes in handy. I can hide this list. I can look at Alita. Now within Alita, she has her personal information, individual information, family, marriage information, list of her parents, her siblings. I can navigate to any of these. For example, I can navigate to her daughter. I can navigate back and I can go and take a look at her notes. These are notes that were entered into Ancestry or Family Tree Maker or some other software that you use to gather this information and see all of the notes that you've taken on her. I can see timelines of her life. And for example, when her father died, and when her sisters were born, etc. Take a look at all the media I have for Alita. So there's Alita and her husband, Alita and her sister, just whatever pictures you have. I can also go over here to AI prompt. In the AI prompt, I can cut and paste this into an AI engine and it's going to create a biography. Here you'll see there are instructions. Create a standard biography. It gives it the length, the tone, the perspective. Down here it gives you, there are more rules for the writing guidelines on how you want this biography to be generated. You can paste that into a tool and it will generate a biography for you. Just a word of note, if you're using a free version of these tools, they have a limited number of characters, actually they call them something else, but the limited number of characters in which you can use as a prompt. So if you have a lot of notes and a lot of history for a person, you may see it cut off unless you're using a paid subscription to one of those services. Now the other tab here is ancestors. You saw this before. This is a family tree. I can navigate through the tree as you saw before. I can go to another person in her tree. I can navigate back. I can then go to her surnames, and these are all of the surnames in her background. I can go over here to down, navigate to one of those people, navigate back to Alita. Within the ancestors, I also have notables. Within Family Tree Maker, you can create a custom property called Notable, set it to true, and it will show up in this section. The other tab here is Documents, and these are documents of three types: photo collage, This is a collage of all of the images within the file, not just for the ones in Alita's line. The ancestor chart is Alita's line in a family tree, and we can print that on letter size, legal size, or A3, which is a 13 by 19. I have a printer that can do that, and you can probably find some place to have those printed if you wanted it in that larger format. The different formats have different number of generations that it will generate, but again, those all generate to a Word document, which you can then print from. The last thing that you can generate here is a book. This is a book that contains a title page, a table of contents. It divides each of the sections into by generation, so parents, grandparents, great grandparents, etc. And this allows you to print a history. Now, in that history, you can specify the number of generations in which you want details for every individual, the total number of generations. For example, you might want a summary. Here is a key, and this key allows you to print. If, for example, prior to this, if I tried to click that, it would say you don't have a valid key. So I'm going to enter a valid key in here. 98 38ZP 0 GP1. Now, this is a key that will be available in marketplaces soon. Or you can contact me at support@nactrax.com and we can figure out how to get you a valid key. These will be sold in sets of 3, 5, or 10. You'll notice this one has only one document remaining. Every time you print a document where you've generated biographies, it will decrement that count. So you can print 3, 5, or 10 depending on what key you purchase. Now in here, I can include spouse detail. I can include detail about the person's children. Again, the person we're working on is up here, Alita Evelyn Beagle. I can include siblings. I can include sources, and these are sources of where information was gathered so that you can show proof or documentation of where things were gathered from. And you can generate biographies. I strongly suggest that you generate this book without the biographies, in which it will show you all of the notes, because data integrity is something that surprised me. As far as I gathered over the years, you'll find that either it was entered incorrectly, it was entered under the wrong type of information. And I'll give you an example of that. Over here under Lawrence, you'll see over here that in some of the fax information, well, I guess I don't have it wrong. Oh, it's the wrong Lawrence. So under here it says naturalization. This isn't actually my answer. Naturalization. This was actually my confirmation. And it has my social security number, which isn't really my social security number. It's a high school I went to. So check your information. So when you go to these documents, you want to make sure you have the right information in here. Now, one of the things, so I'll tell you what, let me go and show you some of those files that were generated. I'm going to show you one with notes first. So let's go to the notes file here. And so within these notes, what you'll see is I've got a title page. I've got a table of contents here. And in this notes section, you'll notice I generated lots of ancestor charts. Here's her chart for 3 generations. If you generate for more, each of these ancestors here will get their own page and follow them further. So you can get a complete tree, even though it's printed on smaller pieces of paper. And then it will print information about the person. And here are all the facts, which you really want to check really well. And here are the notes. And these are just straight notes, no organization. The images, you can check all the data before you actually create one with biographies. Now let me switch to one where I've got biographies. Let me switch here. So this is one with biographies. You'll notice I only printed it for 3 generations, or generated it for only 3 generations. So here you'll see I only have one chart page. But here you'll notice that I have biographies instead of notes. These are written by AI. Now you'll notice here for her, I generated it for her spouse. It's longer. The website will determine the quality of the information you have on an individual and either generate a 600 word, a 300 word, or or 150 word biography based on the quality of the information. Doesn't make any sense to generate a 600 word biography if you only have a limited amount of information. So it determines that and writes a biography based on that information. Now, after the individual and the spouse and children, whatever you've chosen to decide, it prints these summary sections of the parents here, for example. And you'll notice over here is the times. This is an actual history of the life and times in which they lived. So for the parents, Joseph Early and Miss Cozart, um, then you'll get to the great grandparents and you'll see there's four, and that's the history of their life and times. And then it displays them. Down here at the bottom, there's an index of all of the names and where they appeared. And here you'll see that we have some notables in here about where they those are notable answers in which don't fall in the number of generations in which you generated. Now, one of the things you'll see these little footnotes. Let's see if I can't find one on Gerald. Well, no one's going to have a footnote. I must not have included sources on this. Anyway, if it was a source, it would put a little subscript or superscript on the name and tell you where the source of where that information came from. So that is the uh, myfamilystoryai.com website. Um, the website will run very well on phones. For example, here, this is a much tighter format. The name overlays instead of push everything out, so you can choose a name, you can navigate that way and pull up the information. Filter works the same, but you can run it on a phone or an iPad. This has been a demo of the myfamilystoryai.com website. Thank you very much for listening.